Okay, we'll start today's class. So today's class is an important class as usual. Okay, all the topics are important. Okay, so here we are going to learn about LTI system and its properties. So far, what we have learnt about LTI systems? Rachel,
Additive properties, sir.
you are not audible, man. The voice is distorted.
So now, sir, I'm audible.
Yeah.
The property is additive property
Ah,
and
you learnt about
superimposition and
homogeneity, okay, additive property. Combinedly, we call this as what? Law of superposition. Good. So we learned about this. Then what else we learned?
what is mean by time variant and time invariant.
Ah, time variance, time invariance. Good. So we learned these two properties. Okay, still we need to learn about something called systems which are causal, okay, or anti-causal. We also already learned about the signals, causal signals, a-causal signals, anti-causal signals. Systems also, there are causal systems. Then we should know something like something called memoryless systems or memory systems. Okay. Then we should also have some idea about stability. So let us try to understand this, and we need to work out problems on this. Okay. So that's our next target, maybe 1 or 2 classes. 1 to 2. We'll be doing this. So concentrate and try to understand this one concept. Okay. So far, what we have learned is signal operations, time shifting, time scaling, amplitude shifting, amplitude scaling. Then some basic signals we learned. Okay. Also, we have learned something related to the various odd and even signals, symmetricity, odd and even, periodicity, the energy power, in all discrete and continuous time domain. Discrete time signal, continuous time signals. Okay. So we have these ideas in mind. Okay. Then we also had an idea about something like the basic maths that is required for understanding signals and systems, like complex numbers. Okay. We learned something related to discrete time signals frequencies. Okay. So it's bigger only. So that's an important concept I said. I briefly introduced you to the field of sampling. Okay. So these are all some of the key concepts you should go back and read again and again. Okay, remember, memorizing, understanding is important. Okay, without understanding, if you memorize, it will be a problem. Likewise, we could have understood, but without memorizing, that will also leads to problems. So understand it thoroughly, memorize it, work out problems, practice. Okay, these are all something I'm emphasizing on. Okay, every topic is important. If you're going to evolve as a good engineer, these topics have to be understood in a proper way. So now our today's focus is on this. Okay, this is one concept. Totally you take it as one concept. This totally you take it as one more concept. Likewise, totally we have 5 to 6 concepts in the entire subject. Okay, we have already completed one concept. Let's take all these topics, what we have learned as one concept. The second one is this. The third one is called as convolution, that we will learn after 1 or 2 classes. I already introduced you to convolution. Then difference and differential equation. This is another concept. Okay? This also I introduced you with MIT concepts, MIT OpenCourseware material. Fifth one is Fourier series. Okay, series. Sixth one is Fourier transform. And the seventh one is Z transform. That's all. The entire subject is over. Totally 7 key concepts. Okay. Make it sure that at the end of the course, okay, you are thorough. You have gained some kind of insights in terms of concepts, in terms of understanding, in terms of practice, applying it for some specific problems. If you gain that kind of mastery, then the rest of the semesters you will feel much more comfortable. Okay, that's what I'm again and again reiterating. Okay, so don't leave these concepts just like that. Okay, I'm not going to put effort. Don't do that. Put that effort and gain that knowledge. Okay. So whatever you learn in the class is only for an hour. Okay, that 1 hour of learning will not be sufficient. That's why I said it should be augmented by 5 hours of practice. Taking a topic related to that one particular hour's lecture, trying to solve some problems, gaining confidence. Okay, so that's the key. That's the key of for any Western or European university that you will take, they are following the same process. Okay, the 1 hour of lecture hour is augmented by 5 hours of assignments and problem solving. Okay, so it is essential for you to do that to compete with other universities. Okay, other world-class universities. So now look at this case. We are talking about an input-output system model. We are talking about an LTI system. Okay, so what is the input for the system? X of n. What is the output? Y of n. Okay, so H is in fact the system. The system transfer function, we call it. So it's going to operate on the X of n in order to produce the Y of n. That's the basic concept. Okay, so can you give some examples for that system H? Anyone from the class? Quick answer. Any system which comes to your mind?
Computer, sir.
Computer, okay. Any other?
Amplifier, sir.
Okay, good. So amplifier signals are getting amplified. X of n can be the voltage. Okay. Output also can be voltage of the amplifier. Okay. So you can imagine that clearly. So it's going to amplify the signal. So H can be a gain factor. Okay. So a system is a mapping from inputs to outputs. So you can stop me wherever you feel uncomfortable. Okay, you guys. I'm not going to. I'll be continuing my lecture. You need to stop if you feel uncomfortable or not getting the concept clear. Okay. So you can stop me. A system is a mapping from inputs to the output. So here X of t is a continuous time signal. It goes through the system, and I'm getting H of xt. Okay. Same manner, X of n is a discrete time signal. It goes through a system, and Y of n I'm going to get H of xn. So the first one you call this one as continuous time system. The second one you call it as discrete time system. So far we are talking about signals, remember. Okay, we have been talking about only signals. Now what we are doing, we are taking those signals, the continuous time signal, discrete time signal, and we are allowing it to go through some system, which can be a simple RLC circuitry, or it can be a mechanical system like mass spring damper, okay, or it can be a chemical tank system, like a chemical tank system, or it can be anything. Okay, it can be electromechanical system like a motor. The armature current of the motor can be adjusted in order to adjust the speed. Okay, so in your house you have fan. Okay, how you are controlling the fan? Study about it. Okay, using a regulator to be controlling the speed of the fan. How you are doing it? Study it. It's a system. Okay, we are giving some input signal. Input signal can be electrical, or it can be mechanical force. Okay, it can be fluid flow. Fluid flow. Okay. It can be anything. Okay, so in that case, even you can think of market-based economical systems. Economy. Okay, this can be modeled as a linear system. Economical system can be modeled. Okay, marketing forecasting can be done. Okay, all these can be modeled, but these models basically, as I mentioned to you earlier, they comprises of derivatives and integrals. So naturally, they are linear in nature. Okay, systems are linear in nature, as well as they comprises of derivatives and integrals. Okay, so some kind of an input you give, and that will be operated by the derivative integral operations. I'm going to get some output. Imagine this in your mind clearly. Okay, so the next one. So here we have some systems here. So this is not so there is a system here. So every time when you give x of t, the output is going to get multiplied by 2. So you can imagine this more like an amplifier. amplified to 2. So 1 times x of t is becoming 2 times x of t. Okay, so this one is more like squaring. Okay, squaring the wave signal. So I want to square the signal. Okay, so then you have integral operations. I can integrate the signal. And this one, for whatever be the input, the system output will always be, okay, output will be 1 on this. So here if you look at this is the RLC network. You can clearly see O of t plus RC dy by dt is equal to xt. This is xt is voltage you give here. So this is going to be RC. O of t, O of this output voltage across the capacitor. You apply Kirchhoff law here. Okay, so RC dy by dt can fetch this. So now these are all some basic simple examples for systems. Okay, now we can also, we already have an idea. Okay, so we in fact discussed about systems getting cascaded. Okay, like this, system 1, system 2. Then the output of system is going to be H2 is H1 of xt, the whole H2 of xt. Okay, so that is this idea. So initially you operate xt with this transfer function, followed by this output, whatever you are going to get here, that's going to go inside, and this is going to operate on that particular thing. That's why H1 of xt is going to get operated by H2. So this you can write it as H2, X1, Xn for discrete time systems, and this is for continuous time systems. Anything you want me to repeat here? Okay, fine. So this parallel systems is also feasible. So this is cascaded. Yeah.
Sir, they are the basic equations for the conditions for the continuous and discrete.
Yeah, this is the x of t. T is an independent variable for continuous time signals. X of n is for discrete time. You call it as index n. Okay. So these are all the x of t. If you're going to get O of t, continuous time domain, you call it as continuous time system. And if x of n, if you're going to get O of n, that's discrete time systems. When you call discrete time systems, then the input is a discrete time signal and the output is a discrete time signal. Then you call it a system as discrete time systems. If the input is a continuous time variable and the output is also a continuous time variable, you call the system as continuous time systems. Okay. Mostly we'll be working with discrete time systems, because we are going to learn the next subject, what we are going to learn the next semester is a digital signal processor. Okay, mostly I'll be coming for the subject. Okay, so that point of time you'll be working only with discrete time systems, and then some cases you should know how to convert from analog or continuous time to discrete time. So using some transformations. Okay, that also will learn. So an understanding about both these systems is vital: continuous time system and discrete time system. This is a basic idea. Okay. So parallel, what is parallel systems? We have H1, H2. These are all basic configurations. Okay, how you will connect your systems. It can be connected in serial mode, it can be connected in parallel. Parallel means simply add. Just simply add these outputs, two outputs together. Okay, it's all right. Both of them. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Now you proceed. So you have this, in fact, immediately you can recognize this is the feedback systems. Okay, in the case of discrete based difference equation form. Okay, I hope you can recall difference equation mode. We learned such kind of systems. I hope you can recall. Okay, so you have x of t, then there will be an integrator. I hope you differential equations. Remember, and there will be a gain here. This kind of system you call it as the feedback systems I said earlier. Okay, so difference equation form means you'll be getting a delay instead of an integrator. You're going to get a delay term. Okay, so that kind of system you call it as a feedback systems. The output is going to be fed back again through another system. Okay, this can be a gain also, like what we have learned as a pole. Remember, P0. This is more like a gain factor. Like this we connected, and we studied this kind of a system. Okay, there is discrete time as well as continuous time we learned. Okay, so this kind of system we call the feedback systems. So we'll be studying these feedback systems. See, you have to be clear here. These two systems, serial and parallel connections, dominantly you'll be using it in DSP subjects, filter design. And the feedback systems heavily employed in control theory, another subject. Okay, control theory. This you'll be learning in again in the fourth or fifth semesters. Okay, so control theory is another subject, is a core subject for E&I students. So this kind of feedback systems is what we'll be learning there. Then a system can be linear if for y of 1n, if I give x of 1 n, I'm going to get y of 1n. If I give x2 of n, I'm going to get x2 of n. Then if I combine this, okay, this is a law of superposition. We already have an idea about this. Okay. A y1n plus a b y2n is equal to h of a x1n plus b x2. Okay, so that's the kind of system we are talking about. It's called linearity problem. Okay, is it clear? Anybody having difficulty? Take a system, linear system, give x1 as input, get y1 as input. Same system, give x2 as input, get y2 as input. Then add this to x1 plus x2. Then I should get y1 plus y2. If I do some kind of scaling, okay, amplitude scaling, okay, then I should get a similar kind of response. Okay, so ax1, ay1 plus ay2. Here, so this kind of an operation is what you call it as what? Law of superposition. Okay, the system is linear system. This in fact we learned already. So now look at this. System is linear if this kind of condition is applied. You give x1 n, get y1 n here, x2 n, give y2 n here, then add both. So that will be equivalent to x1 plus x2 passing through the entire system. Okay, you understand? H of x1n added together with h2. This will be equal to what? y1 plus y2. Individually you do it. Normally you can check this one comfortably. Okay, so this is an example for the idea of linearity. If I'm going to get this satisfied, then I can say system is linear. Okay. So if you look at this case, there is an example for linearity and non-linearity. For the first one, it is not linear, non-linear. We will understand this by working out all this. Okay, this is linear, this is linear, and this is also linear. Okay, all these four systems are linear. Three systems, only one is non-linear. Okay. So the first one is non-linear. This one. Okay, this is also non. Last one is also non. Okay. So easily you can work out these problems later on, but right now just get a feel. Okay. So this is a non-linear system primarily because of the square term coming into it. Okay. So this is also non-linear because these two are getting multiplied, x of n and x of n minus 2. We end up in non-linearity. So we'll understand this later on, but right now just get a feel of this. Okay. So time invariant. What is time invariant and time varying systems? So a system is time invariant if for x of n you're going to get y of n, but if the signal input signal is delayed or it is advanced by some n, output is also advanced or delayed like that. In that case, I'll be calling that one as time invariant system. Okay. Whatever n is here, the same thing should be here. Output also. Whatever is, if the system signal is delayed by one time instant input signal, output should also get delayed by 1 second instant. Okay, output also should be delayed. So this kind of a systems you call it as time invariant and time varying systems. Okay, these are all some examples for time invariant and time varying systems. Can you?
Wow.
Yeah. 1 minute. What? You couldn't understand?
How the first one is the example of time invariant?
Which one?
Maybe next slide, sir.
Yeah.
Y of n is equal to n square x of n. It will be increasing by square terms only now, sir.
Yeah, this is not. This is time varying. Yeah, it's a time varying system. This can be time invariant. Okay. So naturally, when you see when you that's what this is more like. When you keep increasing the n, naturally the square is going to increase. So naturally, even if you delay the signal after 4 instants, okay, in square. So this is going to be n minus 4 the whole square. It will become. Okay. That will not be same as y of n minus 4. Okay. So it will not be like this. Y of n minus 4. Okay. So this the first one is the time varying. Time varying. Okay. The rest of the three are time varying. So we'll work out problems on this. Right now, just think about this. That's why I'm just introducing you. Okay. Working out problems, you will need to solve some certain methods. Okay, we'll work out that. System is a mapping from inputs to output. So naturally, if I give a delta t as input, the impulse, the response, what do I get? It's going to be the impulse response. The notation for the impulse response is h. Remember that. If it is h of t, we are talking about continuous. It will be continuous impulse response. This is going to be h of n. Discrete system impulse response. Discrete systems. Okay. H of t is the impulse response of a continuous time system. H of n is the impulse response of a discrete time system. Signals are delta t. Delta t for continuous time, delta n normally for discrete time. Okay. So these are all the two signals, impulse signals. So this you call it as the impulse response of a system. So a simple example, here it is. So if I give for x of n an impulse, what do I get? I'm going to get y of n going to be, system is x of n minus x of n minus. We already learned about difference equation. Remember? Is a difference equation. Naturally, this is going to be delta n. Y of n can be delta n. This y of n as the input is an impulse, I'll be calling it as h of n. That's all. That's the only change. Impulse response means the notation is h. Hereafter, remember that. Okay. Output can be called as h of n. So the system is like this. This is my system, and I give input as delta, and the output is h of n. That's the output is. The same manner I can think of this also. Y of n is going to be h of n equal to delta n minus 3 delta n. Okay. So this is not a causal system. We learned that. It is not causal. System is anti-causal or anti-causal systems. Okay, this system. So then we have memoryless or with memory systems. Okay. For example, system is memoryless if y of n is a function of x of n at only time n. For example, y of n can be equal to x of n. This is more like a, you can think of a resistive element, more like a static system. The resistive element, if I vary the voltage at some time instant t, I'll see the change in the current at the same time instant. Okay, so if it is resistive, okay, because V equal to IR. So whatever be the time instant is, which slight change in V will bring a slight change in current instantaneous. Okay, it's instantaneous. Static element they call it. Okay, so it's not that there is no memory involved here. It immediately reacts. Okay. Current changes, voltage changes, immediate reaction. Okay, some proportional time. Okay, so that kind of system you call it as memory-less system. Y is not a function of x of n minus 1, n minus n for any n greater than 0, past values. Y is not a function of x of n plus n for any n greater than future values. This kind of systems, you call it as memory-less systems. Nothing stored. Past data is not there. Past information not allowed. Okay, so that kind of system is called it as memoryless systems. Is all right? The first values x of n minus 1 for n greater than 0. So n greater than 0, you take any n greater than 0, 2 for example. It is n minus 2. Okay, n minus 1, x of n minus 3. All these are not allowed. Okay, in the case of y of n is not a function. Likewise, x of n plus 2, x of n plus 3, the advanced values, all these are not allowed. In that case, you call it as memoryless systems. If y of n is a function of this, then you call it a with memory system. For example, this is the first one, the classic case of what? First one is what? With memory, without memory.
Without memory.
Without memory. But whether it is linear or non-linear?
Non-linear.
Without memory. It's going to be non-linear. Okay, so the second one with memory.
With memory.
Primarily because the past data is involved here. See, x of n minus 1 is with memory, linear. The third one is going to be with memory again. Yeah, with memory. Because n plus 6 is involved. And it can be linear. Okay, the last one is going to be what?
With
It's going to
memory.
be with memory.
Non-linear.
Non-linear. Okay. With memory. So that's the idea of memoryless systems. These are also has memory. See, has memoryless system. Now, if you take causal systems, okay, the causal systems is basically yn is only a function of x of n minus 1 for any n greater than or equal to 0. It means what? So it's time to delete x of n greater than or equal to 0. It can be minus 1, x of n minus 2, x of n minus 3, or x of n. So y of n is a function of only these kind of inputs. Then in that case, it's going to be causal because we are going to think about signals that exist at 0 or after 0. Okay, these signals are allowed. If this is x of n, then the system is going to depend as a function of y of n is a function of x of n. Okay, then this f is going to be a causal system. Okay, it's a causal system. Because the signal x of n exists only after equal to 0 or after 0. That is this idea. N greater than or equal to 0. Past and present values of x of n. Y of n is a function of past and present values of what? X. Okay, that is the idea of causal systems. That kind of system we call it causal. If okay, is causal if h of n is equal to 0 for n less than 2, definitely. What is h of n? What is h of n?
Discrete time.
Discrete time impulse response.
Discrete time impulse. That's the right thing. What to say? It's a discrete time systems impulse response. See, normally at the impulse response, what time you give? At n equal to 0, normally. Yeah, at n equal to 0. So then only the system will start reacting. And as soon as you given the impulse, the system will start reacting at a output also will start at 0 and it will proceed like this. Okay, the samples you will be getting. So naturally for if it is system is causal, then h of n will be 0 for all n less than 0. Okay, for all n less than 0, definitely it's going to be 0 only here. Okay, it will not be having any values here. So such a kind of system we call it as causal systems. Okay. Causality means what? We define a causal system as a system for which the present value of the output y of t can only depend on present and the past values of the input. Okay. For a non-causal system, the present output will depend on future inputs. That's not feasible. The real time scenario is not feasible. The system is going to react for future inputs. How? Okay, system output could depend on future inputs. Output of system depends on future inputs. That kind of system you call it non-causal. Non-causal systems are called anticipatory systems. They anticipate the future. This can be feasible with the help of what you call stored data. Computer, you can store data, for example, a set of data points you can store. Okay, then I can compute what you call the slope of the line. Because these data are all stored. So I can compute the slope by taking the future values. For example, I can take some y of n plus 1 minus y of this x of n plus 1 minus x of n for computing the slope. Stored data. The data are all stored. X of n plus 1 minus x of n I can take. Then divided by some sampling time. This I can compute as y. But all these points are what? All these points are stored. Okay. With respect to n. Okay, these are all the sampling points. This is x of n. So I can choose any value because every data is stored in the memory of the computer. So in that case, I can compute y of x of n plus 1 minus x of n divided by delta. Okay, some delta change. The slope can be computed. So then in that case, I am going to call that one as y of n. So this system, whether it is causal or anti-causal, what is this system? Anticipatory system. Okay, it's called anticipatory primarily because it is non-causal. Yeah, non-causal. You should call this as non-causal. Now, anti-causal is different from non-causal. Anti-causal is not non-causal. Okay, we'll see that. Okay, non-causal is different. Okay, the present output could depend on future input. Not only future inputs, present input also it will be depending on. In that case, you call it as non-causal. Then what is anti-causal? Can somebody guess? If the system depends fully on future inputs, okay, there won't be any x of n coming inside. Depends only on the future input, you call it as anti-causal. It's called anti-causal systems. Is it all right? Can everybody getting the point clearly? What I'm trying to convey? Anything you want to repeat?
The causal one equation.
Causal?
For example, equation.
Correct. So the basic idea is clear. What is causal system? For example, best simple example is y of n is equal to x of n minus x of n minus 1. Whether it is causal or non-causal or anti-causal.
Non-causal. Sorry, causal.
Is causal. So yeah. For example, y of n inconsistent x of n plus 1 minus x of n. That's called. What is this? What about this system? What about this system? Is this present output? Yeah, present output is not anti-causal. Careful.
Can't understand that.
That's where the problem is. So this is called a non-causal. Non-causal or acausal, you can say. Okay. Non-causal. Non-causal in the sense it can have both future inputs as well as present inputs or past inputs you can have. Okay. For example, this can be written as non-causal. Another example. X of n plus 5 minus x of n plus x of n plus n minus 1. This can be another example for non-causal. Why? It depends on future inputs, present input, past inputs, n minus 1. So naturally it is non-causal. What is anti-causal then? Anti-causal means only like this. Y of n is x of n plus 2 plus x of n plus 5 minus x of n plus 6. System is like this. Okay. So this kind of system, if you look at it, all the values are future, no past and present. So this kind of system, you call it completely anti. It's completely against causal. Okay. What is causal then? Causal is, example is, it depends only on present x of n and then past, only past. Okay, x of n minus 5 is square bracket, discrete term. Okay, so this kind of system we call it as causal. Only past and present, past. This one, anti-causal, only past, only future. Only future inputs. Non-causal, present, past, and then future. All everything is combined. Non-causal. Okay. So then you call it as non-causal. But future should be there in the non-causal signals. Okay. Future should be there. Future signal should be. Is all right? Now
Yeah.
we look at Now we look at this case. Clearly you can understand. The first one is whether it's causal or non-causal.
Causal, sir.
Causal.
First one is causal. Present value. Second one is
Causal.
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 Present and past. Third one
A causal. A causal.
is called non-causal.
Causal.
A causal or non-causal. Okay. Fourth one,
Causal. Causal, sir.
that's all. Okay. Causal, non-causal, this one, causal. All right, yeah. Likewise, you should understand something called bounded input, bounded output, BIBO, stable, unstable systems. For example, I have a system, and the input x of n is bounded. That means it's less than infinity. Okay, and then the output, I'm going to get some output h of x of n, some operator h acted on the signal. And the output is also less than input. So for a bounded input, if I get a bounded output, this kind of BIBO they call it. Bounded input, bounded output state. Okay. So normally, in order to compute whether the system is stable or not, for LTI systems particularly, we will be looking at something called the impulse response. That's why impulse response are very important. Impulse response, as I already earlier told you, represented by the notation h. For continuous time, it is going to be h of t. Discrete time, h of n. Discrete time systems, continuous time systems, impulse response. Impulse response. Impulse response. Okay. Now, if I'm going to take that signal, what we are doing here? Can you guess what is this? It's called the computing the energy. Remember, x of n. Remember, we did this square n equal to minus 1. What is this? This is what we did for energy computation. Okay, so this energy computation for the impulse response, for example, for an LTI system, if I'm going to give one impulse, I'll be getting an output mostly like this, kind of decay waveform. Okay, whether we can compute power for this signal?
No, sir.
No, we cannot compute. So we have the very few samples and then it decays away. It's a converging series. Okay, for converging series, we have to compute the energy. So normally they call it as the size of the signal. Energy computation, they call it as the size of the signal. We refer to linear algebraic material. It's called as a Coulomb. Coulomb of the signal. Okay, we'll learn that later on. But right now, see, we have to, when we study what you call vector space, okay, then vector-based calculus for understanding Fourier series, Fourier transformation. That time I'll again discuss about Coulomb-based concept. But right now, don't worry. But just think, it is the size of the signal. Okay. Naturally, the size has to be bounded. If the output of the LTI system, a linear time invariant system, for one impulse input, if it is going to be like this, keep on increasing, okay, it's going unbounded, a kind of a diverging output. In that case, you call the system as unstable system. Normally, feedback is a problem. Even a stable system, when you are not properly connecting it to the feedback node, you may end up in an unstable system. When you electronic circuits, you will be learning this semester. So when you are learning oscillators, be careful. Okay, try to understand the feedback concepts of the oscillators using the idea of BIBO stable systems. Okay, you will try to see something like a sustained oscillation will be getting the oscillator. How we are getting it? What is the corresponding location of the pole? Pole concept I already introduced you. Okay, the denominator, the polynomials roots. Remember r square minus 2r plus 1. We learned the difference equation. Time delayed systems. Okay, we represented in terms of the transfer function in terms of a polynomial expression, and then we cascaded, and then the parallel connections we did, go through that material, and then when you study electronic circuits, try to relate that with this concept of oscillators. Okay, so the idea is what I'm trying to convey to you is h of n square computing the energy of the impulse response of the system. It should be less than n. That is it. That is stable systems. Stability is an important criterion. Okay. If the system energy goes unbounded, what will happen? Nuclear reactions, for example. If you trigger it, energy goes unbounded. Okay. You should be careful. See, in all big plants, temperature systems, boiler, for example, pressure systems, system stability is a key factor. For a bounded input, if system output goes unbounded, you will end up in trouble. Stability with respect to aerospace domain, it's an important problem. Okay, aerospace. Those guys who are interested in aircraft control, think about it. We have a department, aircraft, aerospace department, mechanical department here. Okay? And there are people who are working on this kind of stability control of aircraft systems. So as a control design engineer, you can go and discuss with them and try to work with this kind of problems. Okay, so it will be quite interesting. You can think of a project on that. So particularly, what do you call? We have UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles. Okay, a group of people they are working on it, controlling this, particularly maintaining the stability of it. It's a big challenge. Okay, so because the wind energy, wind is there, wind disturbances will be there. You are flying in a high altitude. Okay, all kinds of stability issues will crop up. So there, in fact, we have to study how we can to maintain the stability for a bounded. So a classic bounded signal, for example. So you say the signal is bounded. What do I say? For example, where cos 3t is bounded. Whether cos 3t is bounded or not. The cos 3t is bounded. The signal is bounded.
No, sir.
Right,
It repeats now, sir. Periodically.
that's all right. See, that you have to understand. That's why the understanding is important. See here, the waveform, it's going to be like this cos. Okay. Now, when I say bounded, I'm trying to think in terms of the amplitude. The amplitude, it can be periodic, but it is within a bound. Remember that. But as soon as when I say a signal something like this, okay? Look at the amplitude, it is going diverges. Okay, it's diverging, this is bounded. So this is a bounded signal means it is stable signal, not system. Okay, I'm talking about signal. is a stable. I cannot say stability here. I can say only a bounded signal. Stability is connected to systems. Okay, it's only a bounded signal. So this is an unbounded signal. 7 e power minus 2t ut. Can you imagine the signal how it looks like? 7 e power minus 2t. How will the signal look like? E power minus 2t means it's something like this. Exponentially decay. Ut, the signal exists only for what? Time t greater than or equal to 0. U of t. This is a step signal. When you multiply these two, definitely the signal is going to be a bounded one. Okay, because it is exponentially decaying, and this is constant signal. Constant signal multiplied by exponentially decaying, the signal what you will be getting is like this. This is your signal. 7 e power minus t 2t u of t. This is bounded. Okay, it is decaying exponentials. So e power 2t u of 1 minus t. What about this signal? Can you imagine this signal?
Time shifting at minus the exponential multiplied with unit scale.
And e power 2t u of 1 minus t. Yeah. What is that?
Unbounded.
Unbounded. Yeah.
So e power minus 3 is bounded, sir.
No. So 1 minus t. Look at that. That is very important. One minus t. We look at this signal. Okay, what is u of minus t plus 1? What is u of t plus 1? You can clearly see it is like this is u of t plus 1. Advanced by 1 instant. What is u of minus t plus 1? Signal is going to be just the reversal of this. 1 to infinity. This you are multiplying with the e power 2t. E power 2t, how the signal looks like? Going to be a bounded one. Okay. It's like this. Like this. So naturally, till this point you are going to multiply. Afterwards, signal is going to be 0. So this is going to get clipped. Okay, you are going to multiply that. This is 0. So all these increasing exponential is going to get cut. So naturally, you're going to have a bounded signal here. Look at this. This is like this. So this signal is a bounded signal. All right? You with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is minus t plus 1. The signal you have to draw properly. U of minus t plus 1. You have to imagine this clearly, and only you can solve this. Okay. Then 20. Yeah. Now look at this. So these three are bounded signals. What about this signal t square unbounded? E power 2t ut can clearly now see the difference. Can you see it now? The signal difference. E power 2t u of t. What about this signal? This is going to be this one, unbounded. Okay. So that's not bounded. E power minus t. E power minus t is also unbounded, primarily because it's going to start from minus infinity, like this. So, but as soon as I multiply e power minus t with ut, it becomes bounded. You understand clearly? You understand the point? What I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Then
sir.
1 by t is also unbounded. Okay. So these are all some simple examples. For BIPO stable systems, so if this is the input, I'm going to pass it through a system, LTI system. The output is also bounded. Input is bounded within amplitude limit, output is also. Then I call this BIPO stable system. If the input is bounded, but the output is going diverging like this, I call the system is unstable systems. Unstable. Okay, unstable. That side. Now look at this. These are all some examples. Okay, can you imagine this? In square, what will happen? For bounded input, not behaviors. Okay, in squaring. So it's increasing. Every time instant it is going to increase. For example, 1 square, 2 square, 3 square. Every index in time, okay, the signal value is going to shoot up, diverge like this. That's why it is unstable. This is stable. Can be stable. So that we need to compute the corresponding H of n for these systems and then compute this. What do you call the energy? Okay. To compute the energy, it is going to be a converging series. I call it as stable. If it is diverging series, I'll be calling it as unstable. What about this one? How I am saying it is behavior stable? Can somebody help me out? Why it is behavior stable? First one, second one.
For different values of n, that impulse we should test it with impulse condition.
So that you can easily understand. See here x of n, if the input signal is delta n. Okay. Delta n is the input signal. That's why I'm saying it is impulse response. For an LTI system, if I get output h of n, okay, that's the impulse response. Now, this signal, what is the system? X of n minus x of n minus 1. Therefore, the output y of n can be what? H of n minus h of n minus 1. Understand? So h of n minus h of n minus 1. That's output. So this one can be bounded or not. How do you check it? Primarily because output is what? Sorry, not h of n minus 1. Delta n minus delta n minus 1. That is your impulse response, h of n. You understand? H of n, what is the impulse response for this system? Delta n minus delta n minus 1. Because system is LTI, therefore when you shift the signal also you are going to get the same output, same delta output. So output of y of n is going to be delta n minus delta n minus 1. As we are giving impulse as input, we call it as h of n. So this delta n minus 1, how it looks like? Delta n is here at 0, n equal to 0. Delta n minus 1, it's going to be here, plus 1, but this value is going to be minus 1 because minus delta n. So the signal is like this. Whether this system is an energy signal or a power signal, it is an energy signal. Okay, you have only 2 points for the impulse response. So for this system, when I give one impulse, I got the response. Is it clear? Everybody with me? How many of you not understand?
Sir?
Yeah?
Sir, if you subtract those two signals, it is coming, one is going up, pointing upwards, another is pointing downwards. So how it can be bounded, sir? Only that thing.
No, it is bounded because it is unit impulse only they are giving now. Amplitude is bounded. Unit impulse. That's all. Okay, amplitude is not changing. Delta n minus delta n. Is it clear? That is output.
Okay, sir.
This is the impulse response. Okay, so this is plus 1, this is minus 1. So this is plus 1 minus 1, easily you can compute the energy. What is that? 1 square plus 1 square. It's going to be 2 is energy. Okay. So because we are computing it from n equal to minus infinity plus infinity, you take the 2 samples. Rest of the values are all G. So the value is 1 square plus x of n square. The same manner we can say this is also PIP stable. This is also PIP. What about the response? Can you predict the response, impulse response for this system? How it looks like? Can somebody tell me?
That amplitude is 3, sir, in that case.
X of n minus 3 times x of n plus 6. That is the signal. Okay. Now when I am going to give an impulse, x of n, now it's going to take delta n. And the output, y of n is going to be what? Delta n minus 3 times delta n plus 6. How the response is going to look like? Whether it is a causal system or anti-causal system? It will be non-causal. At n equal to 0, I'm going to have response 1, and at n equal to -6. So the system output is coming for future inputs. Future input. Okay, it's going to be that. Okay, it's n equal to -6. So actually, I'm giving the system input. He's responding. But this signal, but this is comfortably you can say it is behavior stable. Why? We have only 2 samples. So it's going to 3 square plus 1 square. That's all. 9 plus 1, 10. That is the value. Energy value. It's bounded signal. Alright.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, that is right. So in the same manner, so now look at this plot. H of x of n equal to phi x1 plus 1. Whether it is linear or not is the question. How we are computing it? We are taking h. What is h here in this case? H is going to be the operator, system operator, the system now, h. What it is going to do? It's going to take the signal x of n and it's going to multiply that signal by phi and add with 1. That is operation. This h operation is defined. Take input, multiply with phi, the amplitude should be multiplied with phi, add 1. So naturally, when I'm going to do that, h of a x1n plus b x2n. What should I have? I should have 5 times xn can be split up into 2. A x1n plus b x1 x2n plus 1. That is one operation. The other operation is you split up separately. A x1n plus b x2n. What are we going to get? Definitely these two are not the same. So naturally it's going to be non-linear in nature. Okay, remember we studied that. Remember linearity. Yeah. This is what we studied. So if I'm going to have x1n passing through the function, get y1n. x2n passing through the function, get y2n. Then add both. That should be equal to x1 plus x2 added together passing through the function. If they both are equal, I call the system as linear. The property of superposition, I said. Same idea. That's what we are doing here also. Yeah. So here also I'm separately I'm adding both and I'm getting one response. Separately I'm doing it. H operating over AX1, H operating BX1. That will be different. Okay, these two will not be equal. So natural system is nonlinear. Is the system time invariant? How do you say that? It's time invariant. Okay. 5 times of x of n plus 1. What I will be doing this area. Okay. Y of n is good. So whatever change is happening in the input side, the input signal initially I'm going to give x of n, I get it here. And then if I'm going to give x of n plus n, I should get y of n plus n. If that is the case, I call the system as time invariant. That's what is happening. Okay? Nothing is changing. This one is not changing, this one is not. Phi is not changing, phi is not. Input alone changes. Output alone changes. System is memoryless. Yes. System causal? Yes. Okay. So clearly you can see it's not depending on. Depends only on the current time. Because we are memoryless systems. So all memoryless systems are causal systems. Remember that. All memoryless systems are causal. Okay, remember that. Yeah, with that I'll stop today's class. For any doubts? Okay. Let's stop.